Welcome to Crimestoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crimestoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crime by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that leads to an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crimestoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General, Crimestoppers Trust Fund, and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crimestoppers work. On today's show, we will talk with FDLE agent Brett Thompson, resident agent in charge of the Lakeland Field Office. The mission of FDLE is to promote public safety and strengthen domestic security by providing services in partnership with local, state, and federal criminal justice agencies to prevent, investigate, and solve crimes while protecting Florida citizens and visitors. Through its Regional Operations Center and crime laboratories, FDLE delivers investigative, forensic, and information services to the Florida criminal justice community. Agent Thompson, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here. Now, you have 20 years in law enforcement, but you have kind of an interesting story of how you actually ended up in law enforcement. Tell us about that, if you will.
Well, it started, when I was growing up, moved around quite a bit, and went to high school in Virginia Beach. I ended up going to Florida Southern College here in Lakeland. And started off with aspirations of going into pre-med, and I took a couple elective classes in criminology, and kind of changed my whole vision on where I was going with my life.
That's very similar, because I was actually a music major in college and had transferred to business and taken a couple of criminal justice classes, law classes, and kind of ended the same way you did. That the more classes you took, it kind of gets in your blood, doesn't it?
Sure did.
Yeah. Now, you had an instructor at Florida Southern that a lot of people have heard about.
I think most people know him around here, Sheriff Judd. Back then he was a major, I believe, and was an adjunct professor at Florida Southern, and I took several of his classes.
Very good. Now, I'm sure that's interesting. I'm sure he had a lot of stories that he could tell, and
He sure did.
And probably could tell a few more now of late. Now, you actually interned, because part of the education process for Florida Southern is you have to intern at an agency. Where did you intern?
I interned at Lakeland Police Department.
Okay. There again, they're very similar to me, because that's where I interned. I think it may have been a couple years prior to you, though. So.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it may have been. Now, as part of, once you got your graduation, that's when there's kind of a hiring freeze. You had to wait a little bit and do some things before you got hired on.
Yeah, sure did. In between the time of graduating from Florida Southern, I worked as a bartender at Bennigan's for several years, and ended up putting myself through the academy at the same time.
Yeah. That was during the time when they're making the transition that instead of sponsoring people, you had to put yourself through the police academy.
That seemed to be the trend for most people, yes.
And they wouldn't even take your application in most agencies unless you had your police academy, your standards.
Correct.
Working at that nighttime job, if you will, really gave you good opportunity to get that done and prepared you, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Gave me the freedom to be able to go to school full-time and work at the same time.
Well, that's great. Now, also, before you started with the FDLE, you worked where?
I worked for the Polk County Sheriff's Office, just over 13 years.
13 years there. Tell us about where you worked in there, some of the things you did.
I started off in patrol like most people, did 4 years there as a street training instructor. There I moved into investigations and spent about a year doing crimes against children and sex crimes, and then moved into homicide, worked homicide for 3.5 years. And then I went into narcotics, organized crime, and vice. I was there for about 5 years.
Now, you also spent time on what they call the DEA task force, the HIDTA task force. Tell us a little bit about that, if you will.
I was a task force agent with the DEA, and which involved driving to Tampa a lot, working with the groups over there, and covered the whole middle district.
Now, you work with a lot of different agencies in the task force, don't you?
Yes.
And what is the main purpose of that? Why is that so specialized?
It's to basically be able to attack the whole problem from not having jurisdictional boundaries. You have more authority to go and affect arrests in the whole state. Yeah.
And you're really on these, you're not looking at the street level people, you're really looking at the main suppliers.
It's more upper level and suppliers, yes.
Yeah. Very interesting. It takes a lot of work and a lot of hours. we had talked earlier about, a lot of people see it on TV that, they get their cases solved in an hour and there's no paperwork, and it's all wrapped up nice and sweet and in a very short time. But in reality, it takes a lot of time. And we had talked earlier again about a particular case you had worked that had a lot of hours in, didn't you?
Yes. More than the first tour, so to speak. We were out for over 32 hours, just myself.
Now that's 32 straight hours. I mean,
Yes,
that's
sir.
not time going home. I mean, you're there, and that's 32 straight hours.
On the road working, never going home.
Yeah, and that was a homicide case, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and I know it takes a lot of work, and people think that it's easy. They probably have seen in the Ledger or some of the news media the cold cases, and if you don't get them pretty quick, the longer you wait, the harder it is.
It's the truth about the first 48 hours is true.
Yeah.
You have to get in there and get the leads and follow them up as fast as possible.
Yeah. Now, as an FDLE agent, what type of cases does your office investigate?
We work a variety, mostly upper level multi-jurisdictional type cases, white collar, fraud cases. Also do violent crime, homicide, cold case homicides, serial homicides. Almost anything you can think of, but mostly it involves more than one jurisdiction.
Yeah. Now, you also are tasked with making investigations into the prison system when they have incidents there, do you not?
Yes. Anything to do with public integrity, public corruption, specifically with Department of Corrections, we have a memorandum of understanding where we investigate deaths of inmates as a result of an act of another, be it a detention guard, a use of force type situation, or even another inmate killing another inmate.
Yeah. You just actually had one of those in Hardy County recently,
yes, we
did you not?
It's the end of the year.
Yeah, and you certainly hate to see that in anywhere, but it's a very important job to make sure that those investigations are done independently, there's no bias, and that the facts come out on the case.
Correct.
Now, you do help local agencies a lot with the services that FDLE offers to them. Crime scenes and some of the forensic stuff and the labs. Tell us about the crime scenes, if you will.
In some regions in the state, we have a crime scene that will respond and process a homicide scene or a significant scene where there's expertise needed. Mm-hmm. And not every region requires that, just because other agencies have those facilities and those capabilities without requiring us to do it. The lab offers many other services that most agencies can't handle or can't afford to.
Yeah, people don't understand just to outfit that, the van and all the equipment and the training that goes on is just, it's a lot of work for these crime scene techs, and they really are experts at what they do.
Yes, a lot of work.
Yeah. Now, you have regional offices throughout the state. Where are they all located?
Yes, sir. We have 7 regional offices. I'll start at the top of the state with Pensacola, then Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miami, and Fort Myers.
Now, but other than the agents that you have working throughout the state, you have a lot of other civilian and expertise people. We talked about the lab techs, but people don't realize all the other people involved.
Right. Well, in addition to all the lab analysts for all the different disciplines they have, on our lab side, we have our investigation side where we have criminal analysts, intelligence analysts. We have the Fusion Center up in Tallahassee.
Now, what is a Fusion Center?
Fusion Center, in the state of Florida, we have one main Fusion Center that is a conduit for sharing information throughout the country with other states and other Fusion Centers, primarily intelligence, information that we need to pass on for either the safety of our community or others. And in the state, we also have smaller Fusion Centers that feed information to the Florida Fusion Center. And from there, it can go out if it needs to, or it just gets disseminated amongst the state.
Yeah, and that's so important to have that information conduit, because all the small agencies sometimes don't always talk as much as we'd like for them
Correct.
to. It's just hard to communicate it, and have that one central place can really be beneficial, can it?
Absolutely.
I'm sure again, it just having the information, being able to do that.
That's what it's all about, is sharing information.
Okay. Agent Thompson, I'm going to ask you to stick around a little bit longer to have some more information to ask you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We're glad to have that. Crimestoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. These efforts increase tips, which in turn solve more crimes and identify criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent cases.
The Auburndale Police Department is looking for a female suspect who fraudulently signed her victim's name for a debit card transaction. The suspect is a white or Hispanic female, 5 to 5'7", 200 to 350 pounds, heavy-set with a medium complexion. She had long, straight brown hair and a ponytail. She was wearing glasses and a blue Aeropostale shirt and jean shorts. If you can identify the suspect, please contact Detective Anderson at the Auburndale Police Department at 863-965-5555. Do you know where 32-year-old Michael Kincaid is? His last address is 9326 Tom Costine Road in Lakeland, and he is believed to be in the North Lakeland area. Deputies believe him to be armed and dangerous. Kincaid has several warrants for his arrest for grand theft, burglary, dealing in stolen property, and violation of probation. He has been in the Polk County Jail on 25 prior occasions. Kincaid is described as a white male, hard to miss, 6'6" tall, 183 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. He may be hanging out with Jason Chambers or Danielle West. He is wanted for several motorcycle thefts in and around Polk County. If you see Michael Kincaid, do not approach him. Call the Polk County Sheriff's Office at 863-298-6200. On Sunday, April 26, 2015, between 2:45 and 3:15 p.m., unknown subjects entered Victoria's Secret at 1440 Town Center Drive and left with items without paying for it. Suspect number one is a female wearing a shirt with dark blue and white and dark shorts. Suspect number two is a white male wearing a tan shirt and tan pants. On Monday, June 1st, 2015, at approximately 11:15 a.m., unknown subjects entered Victoria's Secret at 1440 Town Center Drive and left with items without paying for them. Suspect number one is a black male wearing a dark blue t-shirt, white belt, camo pants, and flip-flops. Subject number two is a black female wearing a white tank top and dark pants. And subject number three is an older black male wearing a white golf cap, gray t-shirt, and pants. If anyone has any information on the case, please contact the Lakeland Police Department or Crimestoppers. Crimestoppers number is 1-800-226-8477. To remain anonymous and be eligible for cash reward, you must contact Crimestoppers. The Winter Haven Police Department is asking for information on a vehicle arson. In the overnight hours of June 8, 2015 to June 9, 2015, a 1996 gold four-door Saturn was taken from Briarwood Apartments on Avenue K Southeast in Winter Haven. The vehicle was discovered on fire at the Branco Clinic, 160 Lake Howard Drive Northwest on June 9, 2015 at 5:50 a.m. Video in the area shows two subjects, possibly male, running west from the vehicle, though the grating photo appears to show the subjects wearing hooded sweatshirts. Anyone who is in the area or has any information on the case is asked to contact the Winter Haven Police Department at 863-401-2256 or Winter Haven Fire Arson Investigators at 863-291-5677. On June 12, 2015, there was a theft of a boat motor at 1000 West Beacon Road in Lakeland. Sometime between 4:45 p.m. on June 9, 2015 and 8:30 a.m. on June 10, unknown suspects broke into a fenced area at 1000 Beacon Road. The suspects stole a 2014 Yamaha FX 150 TA outboard motor and the 2014 Power Pole. If anyone has any information on this case, please contact the Lakeland Police Department or Crimestoppers at 1-800-226-8477. 800-226-8477. Polk County Sheriff's Office detectives are seeking the public's help in a series of retail thefts. Between May 7, 2015 and May 26, 2015, two subjects entered the Circle K store located at 2425 West Memorial Boulevard in Lakeland on approximately 6 different occasions and removed cases of beer without paying for the items. Suspect number 1 is described as a black female in her late 20s to early 30s, approximately 5 foot 6 inches and 215 pounds, with short red hair. She's wearing a black and white striped dress with a black visor. Subject number 2 is described as a black male in his late 40s, early 50s, approximately 5 foot 8 inches tall, 175 pounds, with a short haircut and mustache. He's wearing a green and gray striped shirt and blue jeans. The subjects arrived to the store in a newer model, red in color, Chevrolet Impala with a moonroof and a spoiler on the trunk lid. In each occasion, the subjects entered the store and each removed 2 cases of beer, then walked to the parking lot and enter an awaiting vehicle. Anyone with information on this investigation is urged to contact Detective Steve Baggett at 863-577-1631 or call 863-298-6200. Anyone with information who wants to remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward is asked to call Heartland Crimestoppers at 800-226-TIPS or log on to heartlandcrimestoppers.com. An unknown subject is suspected of taking property from a residence within the city of Lakeland on May 16, 2015, between 5 and 6 p.m. The victim later located his property outside of Metro PCS at 137 North Wabash Avenue.
Welcome back to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Our guest is Brett Thompson of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Agent Thompson is a resident agent in charge of the Lakeland Field Office. Agent Thompson, thank you for sticking around.
Welcome.
Agent Thompson, we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the services that they offer through FDLE. We get a lot of information, what I understand, or you give a lot of information out on warrants and particularly people with sexual predators and sexual offender information.
Yes, the state maintains a database of all sex offenders and sex predators throughout the state that are registered through their local sheriff's office. And as a citizen, you can go in and put your address or another address in and find out if there's a sex offender or predator in your neighborhood.
Yeah. That's always good to know because the safety of our children is just so important.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anything in particular you would recommend for people to do? Should they do that often, or?
I myself do it fairly often for my own neighborhood. It depends on where you live. If you notice, if you have a lot of transits in your area, you have a lot of people moving in and out, like rental property or something, you might want to do it more often. You can also set up alerts to where you get an email notification if someone moves into your area.
Okay, and that's if they're a sexual predator or sexual offender,
Yes.
They will actually email you and let you know.
Yes.
That's good information to have. I'm sure that a lot of parents would really like to have that because we all get busy in our life, and before you know it, that's one of those things you want to check, and then you get busy.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about our safety of our children. You have been up basically since early this morning.
Yeah, my phone went off pretty early this morning for a missing child out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and there again, that's one of the duties. People think there's only like an 8 to 5 job, but your phone goes off and you've got to pack up and take care of business.
Yeah, it's never 8 to 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that FDLE also does, they're in charge of security for the governors, correct?
Yes.
The governor and probably some of the political members.
Yes, we have a full-time squad that is responsible for his protection throughout the state and when he travels out of the state and even out of the country. And then we have agreements with other states with their governors or other dignitaries come to our state. We will assist with their protection.
Yeah. It's always nice to be able to plan for that. Sometimes those are kind of spur of the moment too, are they not?
They sure are.
So interesting. Now, people don't realize it, but y'all also actually have a uniform division.
Yes, we do.
Tell us about the uniform division, where that's located, and what they do.
Our uniform division is the Capitol Police, and they're responsible for the security of the state capitol in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and they investigate crimes on that jurisdiction, I would assume.
Yes, they do. They have a full service police department. for the most part. I mean, they have canine officers and bomb dogs and everything to ensure the security of the Capitol.
Yeah, obviously the same training goes for anybody, and probably some little extra stuff, I'm sure.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Now, we talked about the labs, basically, the ballistics and some of the changes, things that the expertise that your lab can produce. Tell us about some of the ballistics and maybe some of the DNA stuff.
Well, the lab's broken down into so many different disciplines, from the biology and DNA. You know, most of the agencies around here will submit items of evidence during a homicide investigation to hopefully find DNA if it's not visible. There's microscopic items of DNA on almost everything. It's just being able to recover it and formulate a DNA profile to identify a person.
Now, I know that in the old days, you used to have a pretty good swab for DNA. You talk about trace amounts now, so you can really, the improvements they made in DNA, you can get DNA a lot easier and do more with it now.
Yes, there's been cases where they've recovered DNA evidence. They call it touch DNA now, and it's just basically a swab off of a item. You never see it. There's no visible body fluid or anything, but with just touching an item, they can get DNA off of it nowadays.
A lot of people think it has to be blood to get the DNA, but like I say, it could be saliva or some of your body
Skin
oils.
cells, right.
That's interesting. A lot of work goes into that. Now, you also do drug testing for agencies, and the fact that they will submit, suspect drugs or make sure you have that for information.
Yes, they test for any kind of known narcotic, marijuana, cocaine, meth, a lot of the K2, all the synthetic items right now, which is a big problem. All the different synthetic cannabinoids that they're, selling to our kids.
Yeah. And that's so important to get that lab analysis, because that's what cases, when they're prosecuted, you have to have a certification from a lab that this is tested for marijuana and it is marijuana or K2. So
without the lab's backing, you're not going to get a conviction for narcotics possession.
Now, you were interested in telling me during the break about a case where somebody actually sent you a door.
Yes, actually a Polk County case where we had evidence on the door. It was a metal door out of a warehouse type building, and rather than run the risk of losing anything, they took the entire door off and brought it to the lab.
Yeah. Now, obviously, because of the chain of evidence, they can't just put it on UPS truck and send it to you.
Oh, no, they had to drive it over.
Yeah. So, and that's a good thing about having the regional offices, especially over in Tampa, the lab. I have been to that facility, and it is just a really large facility, which probably you're going to need to expand as your role changes.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Fingerprints have been kind of the backbone of law enforcement for many, many years, and it's so important. Can you tell us a little about what they call the APHIS system and how you assist the agencies in that?
Well, APHIS is a computerized database of fingerprints that have been collected for many, many years. And it's a process where they can scan in or enter in a known fingerprint or latent print. And the computer helps compare it and come up with a possible identification. Once identification is possibly made, it still has to be manually reviewed and confirmed by an analyst.
Okay, so even though you have the advances of the computers and be able to scan it much quicker than a human eye can, you still have to get that human touch to actually go in and pull it and match, as they say, the points and the swirls and the loops and stuff
Correct.
like that. So that's amazing. Now, fingerprints typically, like I say, are somewhat easy. And the door that you talked about, some of these are awfully hard to lift, and it takes a special touch.
Yes.
And you're able to get that to some of the things that typically most officers in the field or maybe can't lift themselves.
Correct. It's just a little bit more sensitive and time consuming, I would imagine.
Yeah. I know I was always amazed over the years when my prior agency would put items in a fish tank with a dab of super glue.
Yes.
Tell us about that process.
What happens with that is the fumes that emit off of the super glue adheres to the oils left on the fingerprint from your skin. And it kind of makes up kind of a crusty type of latent print that they can actually recover and process. And hopefully identify.
Yeah, because most of the time they have to use a fingerprint powder, which is very fine, like a talcum powder, and it usually goes everywhere.
Yeah, black dust that goes everywhere.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think it's a nice and clean, but it does make a mess, but it's a necessary evil, if you will, to put these people in jail.
Correct.
Agent Thompson, the social media has certainly over the years made a big explosion, and everybody seems to be on it, and that's how most people communicate. A lot of folks either cell phones, and they all have that on their cell phones as well. And how have you seen that impact with FDLE?
Well, it definitely helps with being able to make contact with public that doesn't know us, who we are or what we do. You know, we have our own website, public website. There's a lot of information. We have a Facebook page, much like Crimestoppers does, in order to get the word out. So it's just a way to contact and interact with the community and receive information. We'll receive tips through our Facebook page and other social medias.
I know that I've had a couple of times to work with you in your office about some people with warrants they've been looking for.
Yes.
And we've had a great success with people calling in and recognizing people and sharing it. So even if they don't know, they can share it with their friends and really get the word out on some of these people.
That's what's great about having partnerships with Crimestoppers, because some people just don't want to be involved. They don't want to be identified. They want to provide and help, and you give them a way to do that.
Agent Thompson, thank you for being our guest today.
It was my pleasure, Chip.
For more information about the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, you can go to www.fdle.state.florida.us or join them on social media at facebook.com FDLE page. Before we close today's show, I want to remind you about National Night Out. This is Tuesday, August the 4th. Now, National Night Out is an annual community building campaign that promotes police-community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods a safer, better place to live. National Night Out enhances the relationship between neighbors and law enforcement while bringing back a true sense of community and provides a great opportunity to bring police and neighbors together under a positive circumstance. Neighborhoods across the nation host block parties, festivals, parades, cookouts, and other various community events with safety demonstrations, seminars, youth events, visits from emergency personnel, and exhibits. For more information, contact your local law enforcement agency. That's going to do it for this edition of Crimestoppers. Keep in mind, Heartland Crimestoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crimes through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life here in Polk County. For more information, you can check us out on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crimestoppers Florida. You can leave tips one of four ways. You can call us at 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 1-800-226-8477. You can also click on our Give a Tip tab on our Heartland Crimestoppers page, either the Facebook page or our web page. You can also text your tip to tip 196 plus your information and send it to Crimes. That's 274-637. Or you can also download the Tip Submit app to your smartphone or tablet. No matter which way you submit your tip, all are completely anonymous. Until next time, keep in mind, it's a crime, and you can help make sure they don't get away with it.